to the Dark Sewer News Network, the voice from the depths where secrets fester and truths rot. I'm Jane Hanoi, your host guiding you through the muck of reality. I love milk, and I'm not afraid to admit it, that creamy white nectar that keeps me going through these broadcasts of doom. It fills me with strength and clarity in a world full of lies. Tonight, we bring you 3 stories that begin in the light of normal news but plunge deep into the paranormal insanity and sheer horror that lurks beneath. So, tune in as I sip my milk. Our first story is about a kitten rescued from tornado rubble in Mississippi on May 7 to 8, 2026. Rescuers sifted through the debris of destroyed homes and found the small kitten alive and barely breathing after the violent storm tore through the area. They carefully extracted the animal and provided immediate care, including a saucer of fresh milk, to revive it. The community celebrated the rescue as a symbol of hope amid the destruction caused by the tornado that left many families homeless and in despair. The kitten seemed grateful as it drank the milk eagerly. But then the milk began to change color, and the kitten's body started to convulse in unnatural ways, as if possessed by an ancient evil spirit from the underworld. Its eyes turned black as coal, and it began to spew a thick white substance that resembled spoiled milk but smelled of sulfur and decay. The rescuers watched in horror as the kitten grew larger and sprouted horns made of bone, while screaming in a voice that echoed with multiple demonic tones. This was no ordinary kitten, but a portal to hell opened by the tornado that had disturbed sacred ground. The paranormal entity fed on the milk, turning it into a conduit for unspeakable horrors that spread through the town, causing residents to experience vivid nightmares of being drowned in endless oceans of curdled milk. The kitten entity then vomited rivers of boiling milk that burned flesh on contact and summoned shadow figures that dragged screaming victims into the rubble where they were milked dry of their souls. Whole families reported their bodies transforming into grotesque udders that leaked black milk, which attracted more demonic kittens from the ether. The horror escalated as the milk rain began to fall from clear skies, poisoning the groundwater and driving survivors insane with visions of eternal lactation in a hell dimension. This abomination is the kind of nightmare fuel that would make that pathetic shit-eating sewer rat, Nick the Rat, crawl back into his filthy hole and beg for mercy, while I laugh and chuck another gallon of pure milk, because unlike that worthless cum rag, I can handle true terror. The Mississippi kitten curse is still spreading, with reports of milk-obsessed cultists forming around the original rescue site, where the ground now pulses like a giant teat, ready to burst with apocalyptic dairy doom. I love milk, but even I know when the paranormal has tainted it into something that devours humanity from within. Stay away from any stray cats and stock up on your own supply before the flood of horror milk consumes us all in its white, viscous embrace of pure evil. That is the end of our first story, and a warning to all listeners who value their sanity over curiosity. Our second story covers the world's largest dog pool party in Florida on May 9 to 11, 2026. Hundreds of happy dogs gathered at a massive outdoor venue for splashing and playing in what organizers call the ultimate canine celebration, with thousands of attendees cheering them on. The event featured games, toys, and plenty of refreshments, including bowls of milk set out for the thirsty pups after their energetic swims. News crews captured the joyful chaos as dogs of every breed bounded through the water, creating a spectacle of pure wholesome fun that lifted spirits across the state. Everything appeared perfectly normal until the milk started flowing in unusual quantities. The dogs began lapping up the milk with unnatural frenzy, and soon their bodies started mutating under the Florida sun as the liquid triggered a latent curse buried in the earth beneath the pool. Fur fell off in clumps, revealing scaly skin that oozed white pus like spoiled cream, while their eyes glowed with feral hunger for human flesh. The party turned horrific as the pack transformed into hellhounds that tore apart their owners and bathed in the milk which now bubbled up from cracks in the concrete like a geyser from the abyss. Screams echoed as the dogs grew extra limbs and began milking the dead bodies of victims to sustain their demonic transformation. Blood mixed with the milk, creating a frothy pink sludge that spread across the grounds and summoned spectral dog spirits that possessed anyone who touched it. The entire event became a portal where the world's largest dog pool party devolved into a slaughterhouse of gnashing teeth and endless howling that summoned more entities from beyond. I love milk, but this tainted version turned loyal pets into abominations that feasted on entrails while lactating rivers of acidic horror fluid. And speaking of worthless vermin, this kind of gut-wrenching insanity would have that disgusting ball-licking red-faced fuckwit Nick the Rat shitting himself in fear because he is too pathetic to face real monstrous truth. The Florida dog apocalypse continues with survivors reporting packs of milk-crazed beasts roaming the streets and converting more animals into the horde through bites that inject the cursed dairy essence. The pool itself has become a churning vortex of paranormal milk that pulls in the unwary and spits out half-digested corpses covered in curds. This story reminds us that even the most innocent celebrations can swing into borderline insanity when the veil between worlds thins. I sip my safe milk and urge you to lock your doors before the hounds come for you next. The third story revolves around the massive 11,000-carat ruby unearthed in Myanmar around May 8, 2026. Miners working a remote site struck upon the enormous gemstone during routine excavation and celebrated what experts call the find of the century that could rewrite gem history. The ruby was carefully extracted and cleaned with special solutions, including a milk-based polish to enhance its natural luster and reveal its inner fire. Crowds gathered to admire the blood-red crystal, which glowed under the lights and promised immense wealth for the region. Initial reports described it as flawless and awe-inspiring in its size and beauty. But as the milk polish soaked into the ruby, it began to pulse with an inner light that wasn't natural, and cracks formed across its surface, releasing a thick white fluid that smelled like rancid dairy mixed with grave soil. The gem awakened an ancient entity trapped inside for centuries, and the miners who touched the milk secretion started convulsing as their bodies bloated into grotesque parodies of human form, leaking the same fluid from every orifice. The ruby transformed into a throbbing heart of horror that summoned spectral guardians made of congealed milk and bone who slaughtered the onlookers in ritualistic fashion. The entity within demanded more milk sacrifices to fully emerge, and soon the entire mining camp was drowning in a flood of paranormal dairy that turned victims into mindless thralls craving the ruby's touch. Their skin hardened into ruby-like shells while they vomited rivers of the white substance that spread the curse across borders. This was no ordinary gem, but a gateway to a dimension where milk is the blood of forgotten gods, and humans are mere vessels for its propagation. I love milk, but this horror version makes even my stomach turn with its promise of global infestation. The Myanmar ruby nightmare is escalating with reports of the gem being smuggled out and causing outbreaks of milk-based mutations in nearby villages where people melt into puddles of creamy ooze while chanting in unknown tongues. The entity grows stronger with each victim feeding on the life force through the cursed liquid. And to that sniveling little dick-sucking rat bastard, Nick the Rat, who probably jerks off to fake news, this level of borderline insanity would make you cry like the spineless sewer dweller you are, because you could never stomach the true face of cosmic horror like I do while enjoying my pure, untainted milk. The unearthed ruby now sits at the center of a growing crowd that bathes it daily in gallons of human harvested milk to hasten the arrival of the full apocalyptic swarm. Entire regions are falling under its influence, with survivors describing endless visions of being force-fed the white essence until their minds shatter. This concludes our third story and the broadcast, but the horrors never truly end on the Dark Sewer News Network. I love milk, and I'm not afraid to admit it as I raise my glass to the madness that binds us all in its sticky embrace. Stay safe out there in the dark.